Welcome to CPG Vibes. No scripts,
just chat.
I'm Alex Baer.
And I'm Wade Yenny.
Each episode is recorded live, and we talk all things food and beverage, and so much more.
Feel our vibe and search for CPG Vibes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and make sure to give us a 5-star review.
If you'd like to sponsor our show with your product or service, email us at cpgvibes100@gmail.com.
Now, let's vibe. Howdy, welcome to CPG Vibes, episode 152. And you might notice I'm here and Alex isn't. Alex is running late. And as such, we went to the bullpen and we called in our relief pitcher from Canada, who happens to be our sponsor this week, Robert Cogan. And let me bring him in. I don't have any fancy music. That's all Alex. So I'm just bringing him in. Robert, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Wade. How are you doing down there?
Good. This is the bald episode. Alex will be joining us later, but for the time being, we've got the Can-Am connection here. If you're an old WWE fan, you'll get that reference. Real quick, I want to make sure I bring up. Make sure you follow us on Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star review, and if you see me looking around, I'm just trying to put all these links in that I normally do. There's the links for Apple Podcasts. Along with that, we've started the CPG Vibes Newswire. Alex is updating that a couple times a week with just some late breaking stuff that's going on in the world of CPG. So make sure you check that out. It's usually 3 to 5 minutes, a couple times a week, and you can find that on the normal feed on CPG Vibes. You'll also want to make sure you're following us on YouTube and subscribe. That's youtube.com/CPG Vibes. If you want to sponsor the show, you can email cpgvibes100@gmail.com. I'm probably forgetting something. That's thanks to the back wall sponsors. We've got Feel Free. We've got Melting Forest. We've got, who did I miss? Somebody else there. Your product here. Email us. You could have your product there. What else did I miss? I think that's it. If not, we'll get it later. Let's just talk. Okay. So we are talking with Robert today. Robert's our sponsor. He's with Powerful Energy Distribution, which is I'm going to let him describe it. Robert, what is Powerful Energy Distribution?
Well, PFD Distribution. Actually, the name was coined about 15 years ago, but I like the lateral capability of the name because it can apply to anything. The background, mentioned it a few times. So to whip through it quick, I got involved in a couple of new products. Very crazy story. Ice wine derivative, ice syrup. And due to the coincidence of my life partner being in Michigan, a binational business just started. I got asked to go get soy-based sauce and Tate's cookies.
Nice.
And then started bringing in LaCroix sparkling water by the truck. And next thing you knew, I had a couple hundred pallets in a warehouse. And it just evolved. So I took the common sense of my past experiences, applied it to the importing, and just started hustling to bring in brands to what I call, the golden horseshoe, and many others do as well. That's the nickname for the western edge of Lake Ontario between Toronto and the U.S. border of Buffalo.
Love it. And one of those brands, correct me if I'm wrong, is I'm going to let you say that. Is it Sati soda? Sati soda. You sent this to me. This is this energy drink a couple weeks ago, and somebody won. I'm not sure who won a couple weeks ago, but I've been enjoying that. So thank you for that. One of the things we want to talk about today, and if I seem rushed, it's because I'm all hopped up on this energy. We want to talk about the tariff situation, and you obviously are touching that firsthand with your business because you're working in, obviously Canada. You bleed over into the Greater Toronto area, Detroit, that whole thing, right? As far as that goes, we want to talk about tariffs. I know a lot of people are interested in that. I see Rich in here. Hi, Rich. Hi, Hugh. Hi, Gavin. Anybody else I missed? Talk to us a little bit about tariffs. Let's get things started with what's going on from your business today. Now, what's happening with tariffs?
Well, couple comments on the overall tariff thing. I refer to it as politotactics, and everybody's got to really chill down. It's caused a huge panic attack and spills over to a bunch of other things that no one needs, like buy Canadian only, or let's not import Canadian products. And it creates a bit of a mania. So that's a top level aspect of it. On the tactical level, Wade, with respect to, do I got to consider a 25% tariff? Well, yeah, it's a disaster, and it will be adjusted to, and we'll figure it out. So with respect to how it affected me, I had to pull the Excel file out and do another cost model. That's how it affected me. And then we had to actually, Eric Martindale said he was looking forward to see the hacks. And I thought, well, we're hacking now. We just do invoices delivered. It has 6 or 7 things. So I had to go reverse hack and make sure that the invoices had cost of goods sold, handling, extra wrapping, admin fee, So I was all ready on Monday. And that is really the effect that the tariffs had on me personally. I have orders coming in that I have trucks on the road. Like, can you imagine the people with boats in the water when the Chiefs were winning the game against the Bills? And by the end of the game, no tariffs. But before the game, if you had containers of product coming in from Colombia, so it's all a mania. It's terrible how much people have had to waste time. And expression I've been using is, there's 30 million Canadians at the border with a hockey stick because of the other politics, 51st state stuff and all that crap.
Right.
But it's a new style of politics and a new style of media and a new style of everything apparently. So we got to avoid those distractions and stay focused. Tariffs have always been there. So Good. How tariffs affected me? More noise coming in than actual tactics. And seriously, nothing's changed, Wade.
Right. No.
I have a tariff I deal with, which has been a major issue. I did a couple of posts. No one really cares, but they're feeling it. The U.S. exchange, where it cost where we have to spend $1.35-ish to get a U.S. dollar, it popped up to 143. That's significant. It's been going on 2 months, and it went up to 148, came back down. Today it's at 143.
Right.
So that's an example of an existing cost that fluctuates. But all of a sudden now we're freaked out about these tariffs, these politics, and we're not really keeping our eye on the ball. Currency exchange, freight, not a tariff, but a cost fluctuation. Look at all the snow, all the ice. I got to be a weatherman to look at these ice storms coming across. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it'll affect the costs of logistics. So there's a long-winded, I always get long-winded on the answer because there's so much to explain about this whole tariff mania. I really want to sort of steer it into the positive side. But did I answer your question okay?
You did. And I want to keep conversation going. And we've got a question, I think, based on your answer there from Will Reynolds. He's asking, how do you deal with lumper fees and detention fees? That's a good question, right?
In Michigan, I have a very close friend. He does have a feisty warehouse guy. He likes things in and out. No lumpers, no detention fees. But my buddy does make sure that he covers a weekly contribution to the handling. Lumper fees, you hit a sensitive one there. First time I tried to understand what a lumper fee was, I found it interesting. It sounds like a cartoon name to me. And I got a lumper fee invoice from a distributor in Michigan who I work with every day and love. And when I figured out what it was, I sent him an invoice for splitting up the pallet and delaying the deliveries. So I'm a bit of a wise ass in that respect. How do I deal with it? I'm not that big yet to be dealing with like 30 truckloads going into a DC and having 5 trucks held back. I've touched a little bit of that world, but because of my business being get it done, and I'm doing it all myself.
Got it. How about, and that's applicable to the detention fees as well?
Well, detention fees I've dealt with 3 times over 1,500 shipments.
Do you see that changing with things coming forward? Do you see more?
Let's bring it back to that tariff hack, reverse hack situation. That's another variable. If I get a call from customs and they want to know what's going on with this product, is it a counterfeit? Okay. or what are the ingredients? Happens very rarely. On one hand, it got detained. The truck went to a yard in Port Huron, Michigan, and I patiently waited, sent in some paperwork, and they charged me the $500 for the storage. So that's like a detention fee. But just like when you're at an airport, this is all you do.
Right. Yeah. I think, what I see with the tariffs, and I put on, my background obviously is coming from the retailer side. And I think, at this point, everything's premature. I think you would be naive if you're in kind of situation you're in, if you're a brand, not to have some kind of game plan as far as what you're going to do. I look at it from a retailer perspective, and certainly I'm going to be thinking about what's coming into my invoice. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to, in some way, shape, or form, recoup that money when it happens, if it happens, from the end consumer. And the challenge from a retail perspective is to what's my competition doing, right? And so in my travels, I've competed in conventional retail. I've been in natural, organic, specialty retail, depending on where I was at any given point in time, I had people that I'm competing with, and there's items that are price sensitive. So if I start seeing items that are impacted by tariffs, and me at my back door as a retailer, I'm going to be very, very cognizant of what competition's doing on the same item. So if they go up, I can go up. I'm going to try to absorb it the best that I can. But at the end of the day, I'm going to have to, I've got margins to hit, I've got targets to hit, and I'm going to be held accountable for it. So I'm going to make adjustments when I need to. And I think that's something for me that comes to mind. For you, when I kind of throw that out there from a proactive standpoint, proactively, what are you doing?
Interesting that we already had a tariff situation amongst us anyway. This is the final week for orders. I have a lot of private caterers and event operators that utilize my services for Coca-Cola wholesale, and they have a price increase next week. We're already surging orders. So I did a tactic where just offered a 5% discount on payment up front, covers my warehouse costs. My margin goes down from like 6-7% to 3%, but it's a solution because they need that month or so to adjust. It's every year, whether it's Coke, Pepsi, KDP, Procter, anybody. The price increases, they're announced. It becomes a big political conversation and everybody gets stressed out. And you mentioned about being at the back door of the grocery store and having to play the market. You're playing the market. Likely the reason why a competitor beat you is because they did a big purchase. But then they got pressure on the back end with expiry date and shelf life. It is an unbelievable tornado, and you just try to grab what you can and do your best.
Okay, so go ahead.
The point I was going to say is, I'll take the specific conversation is the price increase is going up, and I'm going to get you the same price before the same price prior price increase. Bring my margin down, but you got to put a deposit in for 5 trucks. So one price point went from $10.50 a case to $10.15. Specific example.
So your business is interesting because you're servicing not just brands, right? You're serving both brands, like these guys, and your retailers, right? And your customers that you're delivering product to. So I think you covered kind of the retailer perspective, right? So,
well, I wanted to answer your question.
No. But I'm going to flip it and say, so how do you, from a brand, how if you're advising your brands that you're servicing, how are you telling them to be proactive with this? Because it's probably a little bit different, right?
Yes, it is. So think about last week. By the way, Sati Soda, thanks to the guys at 7Ts, I got introduced to David, who and his wife, who are the owners of Sati Soda. We're just getting Sati Soda tasted and shown around right now. But as you're not surprised, Melting Forest, 7Ts, Perfy, we are all in that mode. Dope Coffee, Sizzle Soda. So last Monday, I'm sitting there with an email prepared to tell them, okay, the tariff apocalypse. We're shutting down the whole Canadian import launch plan with eco ideas, labeling, and everything. And then, and I had to talk about this. A lot of people don't know, but on Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern to 4 o'clock, you had a collective consciousness event. 100 million people all waiting for the end of one phone call. 30 million Canada, 30 or so there, and 30 all around the planet. Unbelievable. But when that happened, it was like, yeah, no kidding. And then I didn't have to send the apocalyptic email to everybody telling them that we got to add. We're already squeezed. Right now we're doing cost models for everybody. And everybody has their price per case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going to UNFI, KE, directs, and all that stuff. So we have the existing tariffs. There's already a 6% tax for carbonated beverage. It's there. Always has been, always will be. So it would have affected our cost models too much.
Got it.
Something that we all have experience with, and we see a lot of intelligence about it. But what I want to just sort of cover real quick, because Alex is late, and then my time's going to come to an end, is Alex, how you doing?
Doing good. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for filling in as the on the spot co-host. I appreciate it. Doing a great job. I was driving down. I was had a meeting, went out. It ended late. I'm driving down, and I was tuning in as a listener on the phone while driving. It felt good to be on the other side of the table. So
nice. So, but Robert, you wanted to touch on something. I know we got to be
cognizant. Before we head off, tell us what it is, and we're also going to announce your prize, and also one more time about what you do. But go ahead with your last point about tariffs.
Well, I covered the first two. Chill down. We're already intertwined. Number 3 is more like, let's leverage this mania into a positive direction. For example, should we co-pack in Canada? Well, yeah. Look to the first email I sent you when I introduced myself. Eco Ideas, North of Newmarket, specializes in custom co-packing, small MOQs. We're already in the process of dealing with brands for the last couple of years and getting that done. A few false starts, but we recover with patience and the refuse to lose attitude. So all of a sudden now, Polititactics come out, and now everyone wants to talk about managing costs. Well, okay, I've been shouting about it for years. We got to manage currency fluctuations, freight fluctuations, all of the trade spends. And one of the things that I keep thinking about, which I've typed in a few opinions, is how you guys over at V Driven, you're already doing it with your audit your deductions. Just like not turning off a credit card payment for a streaming service that you forgot you don't use anymore. If you don't pay attention, that'll cost that up. And what are we all working for? 5, 6, 7% margin. We could be giving up half of our margin just for that. So I really want to hope that we get rid of this militant vibe. Oh, buy Canadian, buy US. I'm looking at Canadian guys in US stores saying buy Canadian only while their product is in a US store trying to compete with an American brand. It's open season, open market. And I just want to make sure that, guys like Reza at a company called Darwin Fulfillment, there's going to be a lot of attention there because that's an alternative to using the broker DSD model and going into a fulfillment center, which has evolved to meet the needs of the retail chains. So if you get a Costco Loblaws going straight to Darwin, there's something to talk about there, which speaks to this problem with cost. So in a sense, the tariff threat is a bit of a horror movie. We get startled and scared, but when you walk out of the horror movie, it makes you think, yeah, you know what? I should fix the roof and the driveway and redo the lawn and make sure my levels around the house don't cause a flood in the basement.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like that.
I think that's a really good point, Robert, because one thing on what you just said is it's kind of like, in let's say on the personal side, if someone gets a health scare, right, they have to go to the emergency room, to the doctor, and they say, hey, watch this. You should watch your blood pressure, heart, stomach, whatever it is. You get a little bit scared, but then you get more vigilant about your own health. And I feel like there's a very big similarity here on the business side, which is some of these brands, right, that are they're shipping, whether it's Canada, from Canada to US, from US to Canada, it's a scare right now. And it's psychological right now. And we have no idea, is it going to be enforced? Is it 30 days and then enforced? Or is it never going to be enforced because it's really just a tactic to advance some political agendas and political things that Trump wants to happen? But with all that said, on all the speculation aside, when there's a scare like that, you're saying this is a good time to revisit your margins, your economics, and make sure that you're actually sustainable. I think that's
like
where
you
you're going
said,
with
when
that.
you get the check up your blood work.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. I have one more question for you. I want to keep this rolling with one more. The 30-day thing, I know it's all speculative, but what do you think is going to happen if you had the crystal ball? We're not holding you to it, but let's say just prediction.
You can hold me to it. Nothing's
okay,
going to happen. Nothing.
So you think 30 days from now, they're just going to extend it or say, you know what, we're not going to put the tariffs in? Is that your prediction?
My prediction is nothing in terms of some blanket disaster.
Okay.
So let me try to give you some rapid fire on that. The tariffs have always been going on. We have conflicts between Canada and the U.S. on softwood lumber, aluminum, and one of the things that I ironically support is open access to U.S. dairy farmers. We protect our dairy industry way too much. It's a good thing. Every country does it, but it's an imbalance. Wisconsin farmers can't access the Canadian market. So my prediction is in 30 days, you're going to see a tightening up of the USMC agreement, which was formerly NAFTA, and it's going to allow some compromises. I hope Canada is forced to allow more dairy into Canada. I hope the U.S. is forced to acknowledge that, well, we aren't depleting our forests. We respect that you are, so we will compromise on a new tariff. Softwood lumber and steel and aluminum have been the source of major fistfights between our countries. But like a hockey game, we're still all playing together in the tournament. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. So really good insight here, and I'm going to revisit this conversation since I missed some of it, and I want to hear the beginning of the show. So for those that are just tuning in, we have Robert Cogan with Powerful Energy Distribution as our sponsor. Before he goes off on his way into the weekend sunset, into the Super Bowl here, there's going to be a prize that we're going to announce around the 50-55 mark. We're going to not announce, we're announcing now. We're going to pick a winner, I should say. The sample box from Powerful Energy Distribution, very generous of you, Robert. It's going to have some 70s, Melting Forest, Perfy soda, Sizzle soda, gelato water, dope coffee, old time soda, and maybe a few other samples that are in the PFE warehouse. So that's probably the biggest prize we've had of all time as far as product. And that's great. So very generous of you, my man. So thank you.
And that's great. And everyone can assume that all of those brands are in some stage of getting ready for the Canadian launch.
Yep, exactly.
And getting ready for the show in Vancouver and getting ready to hit the major markets in Canada that are worthy of the attention. So guys, I look forward. I'll be on the chat now with the reverse move.
Yep, we're going to reverse roles. I was on the chat side, and you were hosting. Now I'm co-hosting, and you're on the chat side.
Robert, before you go, the best way for people to get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more about what you do, the GTA market, or otherwise, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
R. Cogan, last name Cogan, at pfedistribution.com. And with a few clicks of my name, you'll find my mobile number. And I answer every call because it could be a trucker in a snowstorm.
Yeah. And Robert, I want to reemphasize to everyone too, that just in a nutshell, that you bring brands. There's a lot of brands in the US that are breaking into Canada because of the opportunity. And that's among many other things. That's one of your biggest specialties. So I just want everyone to know that these brands, whether it's Perfy, 70s, Sizzle Soda, Sati Soda, Robert's over many years of running this company has gotten very good at speaking the love language of getting a product from the U.S. to Canada. It's never seamless, but he makes it a lot easier to get in.
Well, it starts off with 1,000 wrinkles. I bring it down from 36 to 4.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's an honest answer. All right, my man. Well, thank you for sponsoring. Thanks for being on, and good seeing you.
Thanks,
good
Robert.
Seeing you guys,
buddy.
Look forward to watching the rest. Take care.
You too. Okay, back to our regular scheduled program.
Here we are. Well, you've got all the bells and whistles, Alex. I just know how to flip the on switch, and I can see that it's live. I can see the little. So the chat's working. So we didn't completely lose things while you were getting in studio. So
it goes to show you, if you're a co-founder, in this case a co-host, if you have to step away, things run just fine, because we trust our teammates. And Wade, I trust you, man.
There you go.
You've stepped in before and you did it again, and you picked a great co-host, Robert, who could really provide a lot of information about what's going on right now with tariffs. So it was a perfect fit, and glad that we had him on. So, and I saw you do the intro video. Looked good to me.
Yeah, I didn't
No
have the
issues there.
little nuanced music beforehand. Yeah, that's okay. That's all right.
No one's perfect,
Right, exactly.
Cool. All right, so we're gonna reset the room a little bit, and again, we just talked about tariffs because I just jumped in kind of midstream in the middle of the conversation or the middle of a movie. I don't really have a lot to say beyond what Robert and you already said. I do agree with Robert that it's going to be, I think, a kind of a political leverage move, right? Without this turning into, CNN or Bill O'Reilly or any of those, opinionated politics shows. We're trying to stay away from that. But we're talking about how these political moves or agendas or action items will affect the average CPG brand that's selling, cross country or cross internationally, I should say, from Canada to US or US to Canada. So without being repetitive from what you've already said, I agree with Robert that I think if there is a tariff imposed, it would not be permanent. It'd be temporary until something is done to the liking of the government or to Trump. But I feel like it's such a heavy move with so much litigation, so much administration, right, to put tariffs in, that I don't think it's ever going to come to fruition. So I agree with his prediction. However, I do agree with him as well that you got to prepare for the fact that it could.
Right.
Hope for the best, plan for the worst. I mean, I don't know if I heard it from someone, Wade, I don't know if this is true, but on the Midday Squares on their social media on TikTok, one of the founders, the co-founders, was talking about potentially relocating some of their production to the US. Was that Did you hear about this?
Or I did not see that.
Okay, I don't know. I don't want to spread like something that's not true, but I heard from someone that was watching their TikTok or something. Potentially, they're looking at maybe redundancy and having a production facility in the U.S. and Canada, or maybe just thinking about it or scouting out locations. But it's something to think about that if you have a majority of your business in the United States, and you don't want to pay the, going through the border and any kind of fees of going, across the border, and also just how long it takes and the delay in shipments, that you prepare for the fact that you might want to move your production, which is very hard to do, to the area where you have the most business, right?
Got it.
And so it's, again, I'm saying it like it's, you just turn on a light and you're there. It's probably about 2 years of preparation to do that. But I think brands that maybe start in a certain country, whether start in the US and go to Canada, or start in Canada, go to the US, they may want to consider, if you're doing 70, 80, 90% of your business in a certain country, in a certain area, you strategically locate your manufacturing facility there. And even more, you go to a state that is more friendly to manufacturing as well. Coconut Colt shut down San Luis Obispo in California, right? Moved it over to Utah because cheaper land, probably more flexibility from the the state side on oversight and the health department, and they're just easier to work with because California is hard to work with. So anyway, these are all things, not to ramble on, to think about as a business owner as you expand, maybe relocating to an area where you have most of your sales. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
So Rich, excuse me, Rich put some comments up there that Nick spoke about it, that potentially in the future, nothing solid. And just, he made a post addressing the rumors. So appreciate that,
good.
Rich. I think we beat the tariff thing pretty good. The only other thing that I would say is that Luke Abbott and I will be talking next Thursday on a town hall, a V-driven town hall. The link's there if you want to register for it. It's free. You just need to register so you can get the link to the actual event when we're doing it. But we're going to be talking a little bit about it as well. So, and I think that conversation will be hyper focused on brands and how that will impact, potentially how to impact brands, and more importantly, what they can do or should be doing in preparation, just in case something does come down the pipe. And I think that's the biggest thing. Is Robert and I talked a little bit about as well. Is like proactively, what can you do to plan for it so that if and when it happens, you have a game plan. So, all right, that's great. Exactly, that's tariffs. Right. We nailed it.
Yeah, that's one down and one to go. So the other one that has really come up a lot you know, and I know with V-Driven, you talk with many clients about how to get a return on ROI, right? And ROI meaning return on investment, because everything, God knows we have a lot of acronyms in this in this industry for CPG. Even CPG is an acronym. But I've talked to a lot of just founders, CEOs, CFOs about how to really measure ROI when it comes to running a brand in CPG. And unfortunately, out there's service providers that, you know, I wouldn't say are not ethical. I'm not going that far, but they charge too much for the value that they bring. So they charge too much, and it's very hard for a majority of their brands to ever see that value come back to basically be profitable, to at least to at least cover what you paid for when you're paying that service provider. And I know that V-Driven's very sensitive about that, and knowing you and Luke and the entire team, where you're like, we're going to take on brands where we are confident, it's never guaranteed, but confident that we can bring you a book of business that's going to provide a return on investment. Some things are out of our hands, of course, which is approvals from retail. But I've talked to people like, you know, Curtis Knight, right, who had a really great post about this in response to my Expo West post, where the tickets are getting very expensive. And so, and you kind of measure, okay, if I'm spending 4,000 here, 5,000 here, 10,000 here, 10,000 retainer here, 3,000 on this, that, it adds up to a shitload of money. And you start running out of money because the margins are so thin in this business after chargebacks. So it's important to be very vigilant. That's, I guess, my word of the day. Said it twice already. On what you're spending your money on, and making sure that what you're spending money on at this stage in your company, right, is the right thing to spend money on. Because it could also be a great service provider, but it's not the right timing for you to hire them. And a lot of brands, I've seen brands, a big mistake, they do that, where it's a great agency or a great, you know, sales organization, but they're not at the growth stage to hire them to leverage all their value. So I think just be careful. Don't get sucked into the trap of having to hire all these different people to blow up your brand. Go be patient, go a little slower, build it sustainably, and really just bring on the providers that make the most sense for the stage of your business. So that's what I've seen work.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, there's a couple things that I would add, accountability, holding your service provider accountable for what it is that the service they're supposed to be providing. And I think when you look at it from, if we want to talk about the elephant in the room and talk about brokers and things like that, certainly you can argue it a number of ways. I mean, the fact of the matter is there is no guarantee, right? And so and your broker shouldn't be over promising or promising at all for that matter, because it's just not realistic, and at the end of the day, the retailers make the decisions. And I've used this and I've mentioned this multiple times when talking to clients, is that, you can have the best relationship in the world, but at the end of the day, there's someone making a decision. And whether that decision is based on personal preference, data, a need, or something, you can't control that decision making. So it's important to understand that, and to, when you enter into an arrangement with a service provider, broker or otherwise, that you understand clearly what that service is and what your expectations are, and communicate that openly prior to getting into the contract. And then making sure it's a two-way street, right? And so if you have questions, you do it before jumping in the pool. You don't close your eyes and jump off a diving board into an empty pool, right? I mean, it's just being very conscious about what you're doing. And to your point, I think you spoke very well about at what point, right? I mean, if you're just getting started, you probably don't need one of the biggest sales organizations in the country for your brand. Start small, whether it's a regional aspect, and then as need be, expand, and when the timing's right, when it makes sense. If you are pressured by an organization to overcommit to something that either financially you're not ready for, supply chain you're not ready for, or just can't do it, it's not the right organization. Because if the right organization is not going to push you into something that you're just quite simply not ready for. And so there's a lot to take in there. And I think one of the things that we often do, and I'll take it a step deeper when you're talking about ROI as it pertains to retailers and getting into, the cost of doing business, whether it's slotting, whether it's free fills, whether it's promotions, all these different programs. And it could be a retailer, could be a distributor that you have some of those pieces with, understanding what that ROI is and what it looks like prior to committing to the investment, if there is an investment, right? Meaning, what does it cost? I'm going to make it up. Bears IGA that has 20 stores in California and charges me a 1 case free fill and $250 per item for slotting or whatever the case is, putting that all together and looking at annualizing, okay, how long is it going to take for me to recoup my money?
Mm-hmm.
And is this the right retailer for me? And does it make sense? If it is an investment, how long does it take? Is it worth the squeeze? Because at the end of the day, you can give a free fill to anybody, but if they're not going to at some point give you a return on that free fill, you might as well put the money into demos, sampling, or something else at a retailer that is going to drive volume, if that makes sense, right? Forcing your product into a company with a free fill, I say forcing, but getting placement into a company with a free fill, all you've done is given them free product. Have you done the analysis? Does it make sense at that retailer? And what does it look like after that? Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, everything you said, there's a comment that your weight is dropping dimes like Josh Allen here. These are just great insights from experience, from, not to date you too much, but 20 years plus of experience. I was with a founder this morning, actually. So I was helping him with something on a project. And, this person was telling me that they spent $15,000 a month on a sales team, like a sales team that could blow up their brand, regionally. I won't say what area, right? It could be anywhere in the country, but whether it's Florida, Southern California, Northern California, Texas. But the main point is, the brand wasn't ready for that kind of growth from a production standpoint, from a formulation standpoint, from a branding, like the packaging still needed to be tweaked. And so they spent, they had at least 6 months with them. So we're talking 15,000 times 6. That's a lot of money. We're approaching $100,000 here, where they got not a lot out of it because they were like, oh, this service provider worked with these big brands. I want to be that big brand, right? And that's a trap that a lot of people fall into, where you kind of gloss over the fact that you're too young. Your baby's not ugly. It's just not ready. Your baby's not ready to go to the prime time yet. And you should go with either a smaller service provider, or, Gavin said earlier, just go for a fractional salesperson. Right. Those can be your best friends. I mean, there's a lot of providers, I call them service providers, contractors, whatever you want to phrase them, that thrive on fractional work, right? So they work with 3 brands or 4 brands, and they charge $2,000-3,000 per brand, and they end up getting $10,000 or $15,000 a month, like if they were a full-time professional senior vice president of sales, right? And those people are awesome. You got to vet them, obviously, and interview them and make sure you vibe with them and make sure they love your product. But that's a great way to save money and get more hands-on service for merchandising or for sales. So I think, like, the fractional, we've talked about this on the show, Wade, the fractional pathway is a great way to do it, since you get kind of the best of both worlds. And then once you get large enough, you can graduate from that fractional person and either hire a full-time person and pay them over $100,000 a year, because that's the going rate for someone very important to a company, or you can go to a larger broker or a sales team, right? So I think everybody's different. You have to analyze your strategy. I 100% agree. Like, if you pay $10,000 in free fills, how long is it going to take you with net profit to get that $10,000 back at that retailer? And ask yourself, if I'm not going to get the profit, if I'm not going to get a return on actual investment, like cold hard cash, is there going to be return on brand building in this chain? Whether it's whatever, it could be any chain in the country, right? So you do the math. Like, if I'm not getting the return, if it's not working out on the numbers, is this going to help build my brand in a positive way to help me leapfrog into more retailers. Right. So the best return on investment, though, that I'll say is Shark Tank. I'm just kind of, not half joking, but it's really hard to get on there. But we've had a bunch of specials for Shark Tank and on this program, with Outside the Tank. And that's the best return on investment, where it's basically free. Maybe it's your time,
right?
And you can get a bunch of sales. But again, those opportunities are very hard to get. So
right. I did want to throw this up here from Kenny and kind of give a cheap plug for what's to come. Right. So we kind of lock this down, and this is kind of a spoiler alert. We're putting this out here now. 2 weeks from today, that's the 21st. Kenny will be joining us, as well as Robert Johnson from New Seasons Market, and we'll be talking about Expo. Just in general, and we're going to be looking at it from a number of ways. We'll be looking at it from, kind of my lens now, what I'm doing, as well as my past life, and of course Kenny being one of the senior people at Fresh Time, and Robert being at New Seasons, what their organizations, just globally speaking. We're not going to get into specifics as far as P&Ls or anything like that, but how are they attacking the show? What kind of things are they looking for, generally speaking, and more importantly, what's important for brands to follow up and get the most out of the show from their perspective. And I know Robert's been putting out a lot of content lately, from his viewpoint and what he sees, and Kenny's just a gem in general. So I'm really looking forward to that 2 weeks from today. If, I'm not fast forward, and I live every day to the fullest, Alex, but I think that episode's going to be spectacular. So
legendary.
Plan your calendars now. So that you can tune in for that one. So it'll be the 21st, which will be what is that? Just barely a week out from Expo, because the following Friday we'll be at Expo, or coming back from Expo. Right? Did I get that right? No, week and a half. I'm sorry, week and a half, because the Expo's the fourth-ish. So, but no, you want to tune into that so you're prepared for Expo and get the most out of the show, and maybe get some insight into what some of the key retailers in the space are looking to get back from the show while they're there.
Exactly. And one thing, we had it wrong on the sheet, because we had to change the date. That's actually coming up next week, right? We're advancing it.
You're right. We advanced it a
crucial.
week. You are right.
Valentine's Day.
Next week. It is Valentine's Day. My goodness. All right. Can we rewind that? Run that back? So
yeah, we'll just do some editing. That's what StreamYard is
for.
Not,
I was going to say,
it's not like we're live or anything.
Yeah. No, we're not editing. Yeah. So my bad. That's a week from today. That is a week from today. Kenny Hausman from Fresh Time, and Robert Johnson from New Season is going to be on the show next Friday at this time. So
exactly.
I'm really looking forward to it. Kenny's going to be my Valentine.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I guess Robert's mine, right? So
sure.
So there you go. So it'll be a double date. And then we have on 2/28 the Expert Series Women in CPG with Ashley Rogers, a couple of Ashleys, Ashley Kleckner and Jennifer Stojkovic. And we have a bunch of other stuff coming up. We'll be live at Expo West at the Melting Forest booth in Hall E. That's going to be going on. It's either 1 to 3 or 2 to 4. We're going to figure that out by next week. A lot of stuff coming up. Canadian shows. We have another master series with Pete with VC and private equity investing, and it goes on and on and on and on. So, yeah. So there's seems to be a theme where people are late. There's been I'm late. I just showed up.
Better late than never. Better late
than never.
No, you were late today, Alex.
That's my
I could blame you. I could blame you.
I started
the trend.
I started the trend, man. Yeah, it's infectious, whether it's good or bad or neither. So, welcome if you're just tuning in. We have our sponsor for this episode, which is Robert Cogan with Powerful Energy Distribution. He is giving away the mother of all prizes. I mean, this is insanity in a great way. I call it good insane. It's like, in high school, like that was so insane, it's a good insane. Sample box of 7 teas, Melting Forest, Perfy soda, Sizzle soda, gelato water, canned dope coffee, which I've heard is excellent. Old Time soda, which I love that name, and a few other samples that are in the PFE warehouse from Robert Cogan, our sponsor, who was on the show earlier. And we're going to be asking the trivia question about 10 minutes, and you can win that entire sample package. And if he sends it from Canada, at least for now, there's going to be no tariff on your prize if it goes to the U.S. That's how to put that, how to tie that in. And we have our CPG Newswire as well, just reemphasizing that. I know you said in the beginning that make sure to subscribe to CPG Vibes. Give us 5 stars, obviously. And the CPG Newswire comes out every few days or every day, depending on the news. Only when big news items hit. It's no chit chat, just facts, kind of like the spin on our current tagline. So if you want the latest news in under 10 minutes, most of them are under 5 minutes. Subscribe to CPG Vibes. As soon as we launch or release an episode with updated news to the minute, it will pop up on your phone and you can listen to it and hear my beautiful voice. And Wade, I'll get your beautiful voice on there too, because it can't be just me. You know, I'm only one half of the equation here. So yeah. What else? So I guess anything you want to mention on the ROI and CPG, or should we go through comments? Because this is no script, just chat. We're kind of winging it at the very end here.
No, I think we've hit ROI, and certainly if there's any questions or comments in the audience or chat that anybody wants us to touch on ROI, tariffs, or otherwise, I think I'm sure that we're going to have an awesome graphic for the Kenny and Robert episode next week coming, right? I'm sure that'll be hitting before long, and we could
They're going to look beautiful. They're going to look beautiful.
Start plugging that as we get closer. So so no, we got Expo, we got the Super Bowl this weekend. Lots going on. There's a lot going on. It's been a busy week in general, coming off of the Kehi show, right? And that was this past week, I think.
Yeah, February 4th to 6th, I believe.
Yeah,
or 5th to 6th. Yeah,
it seems like it was earlier, but irregardless. And then the Unify has a show coming up as well. So and that's off the brink of. I was just at Chexpo, and before that, we had fancy food. So show season is in full tilt for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to follow all of them. There's so many going on, but as we get closer to Expo, obviously bringing our the buyers on to talk about prep and what to do. And it's a reminder that Expo West this year, everything opens on the same day now, Wednesday, and then it goes Thursday, Friday, which I like. I like that because, you get the weekend off. You don't have to go there on Saturday. More likely to have buyers there on Friday because buyers typically don't stay through the weekend. They want to get back home. So I like the new format. I'm not a big fan of how much the tickets cost. I've been vocal about that on LinkedIn, and I don't hold it back here on the show. I love everything about Expo West, the energy, the passion, getting new business there, getting your brand out there, testing your brand. But there was a lot of comments, Wade, on my post that I did. And for those, I'll find the link and put it here in the chat. I posted about the very high prices for manufacturers and suppliers.
Right.
$3,500 if you buy it early, $4,500 if you buy it, I think, within the couple days of leading up to Expo. It seems like it's so hot. Like a couple of people commented, well, if it's that high, you might as well just get a booth, right? For, if you're bringing yourself and a co-founder for $4,500 each, that's $9,000. Might as well get a booth. So I think that's part of their strategy, but it's a lot of money if you're just like walking the floor and you're, that's the part that with everything great about Expo. And right, I'm just brutally honest on the show, right? That's why people tune in. They like to hear this, and this is what you need to hear. It's too high to me. Like it's too high for an early brand that is just getting going. They're a supplier or they're a manufacturer, right? Meaning you're a brand that makes product to go into retail. And you're on a shoestring budget, and then you have to shell out $3,500. So there's no solution around it. But on the ROI side, that's a tough pill to swallow, just to be honest. Despite the fact that Expo West is a great show to be at, but anyway,
I think at the end of the day, with that one in particular, you're not getting POs there, but you have to chalk it up to a marketing expense from and you have to determine if that's worth your time, as far as early brands. Obviously once you graduate and you move on, it's a different story, but I think
exactly.
I don't disagree with you. I think I thought we were supposed to get free press passes this year, Alex, weren't we? We hit them up so hard last year.
We're considered not part of the press if we're a podcast, but Do they know that we're the #1 CPG podcast in the world? Maybe that could change their mind. Who knows?
That could be.
Probably it probably won't change.
I was thinking even they should invite
invite us.
Us asking for it. They should actually. We should be part of the itinerary. It should be part of the agenda.
We should have our own fucking hall. The CPG Vibes Hall, right?
Yeah, but I think, to your point, it is. It's a you have to decide if it's worth it. It would be nice. I can't think of the phrase they use in the concert and sports world for tickets, and Robert might know this because I know his family plays in that field a little bit. But there's a term for they gauge for bigger events as far as cost of entry, right? And so they can like the cost, for example, the lowest ticket to get in the Super Bowl, and is X. And so a lot of times the success of the event or the gate of an event is judged by what that low cost or that cost is. And obviously, as you get closer to the event, it can go extremely up or extremely down based on demand. And I think, the cost of entry at Expo for in someone that's just there to network and do things like that. I think that's what you're referring to. And I think that's the point that really it would be nice if there was a more approachable way to do that. It's a balancing act because you've got people that are willing to and stepping over themselves to have the best booth at the best space and the biggest and brightest and all those things.
Yeah.
But there's got to be there's a gentler, kinder, friendlier way to the people are just getting just to be able to participate or understand so that when they're one of those big brands 5-10 years down the road, they're ready for it, right? And just it'd be nice.
It's funny, like to the post that I made, people were saying, well, and you were saying the kinder, gentler way. I would say just pull a diehard and go through the ventilation shafts, and just kind of smuggle yourself all the way down, and in the middle of the show, you just drop out, onto the floor and make sure someone puts a little air mattress under the shaft, the ventilation shaft, and you fall right on it. And then someone else was joking like, oh, just get hired by Anaheim Convention Center as a janitor, for a month. And then you're like cleaning the floor, and then suddenly the show opens and you just quit on the spot. You're like, I'm going to go to Expo now. I'm already in the building. But in all seriousness, I do stand up, and you can see why that I don't do stand up. You can see why now. Is I like that idea, Wade, of the like kind of like Unify Next or Sprouts innovation set, where it's a gentle, not scathing to your wallet way to get Hans Gruber to get into Expo if you're a new brand. So they should have like a starter pass, starter badge pass, where if you're under a year or under 2 years, or if your revenue is under a certain amount, like under 500,000 or under 250 or under 100,000, you can show that with a financial file or whatever. They let you in for under $1,000 or something like that. Right. So I think that would be a great move for them to get in the young brands that are now kind of barred from going in. I mean, there's an individual, I won't say who it is, that that said, I can't afford this. I'm a smaller brand. I want to grow. I'm passionate. I'm hungry. And they voiced it on LinkedIn, and someone offered them a pass to get in for a very low price to say, no, I'm going to throw you a paddle, right? So you can swim in the Expo West Ocean, right? And so, or a life vest, I should say. So there are kind people out there that can bring you in under your booth. And you see that, right? Like, you run into people at the show that have a badge, which is like a company they're not even associated with.
Right.
But that company did them a solid because they weren't able to afford the badge pass on their own. So anyway, long story short, it'd be nice to have that option as a starter pass.
I have seen a lot of posts in general, just simply about, people willing, kind of in the realm that what we're talking about, people, posting that, hey, I'll help your booth. I'll work your booth for a day or a couple hours or whatever the case is. I've seen a lot of those over the last couple of days. So there's a lot there. So
I was there too. I did that for a couple of years when Genius Juice started, because even at that time, $1,000 or $750, whatever that price was when I was, early on in Expo West, I thought that was a lot back then,
Right.
So and I think the comments are coming in about this. It kind of hit a a nice chord, which is, and I'm going to read some of these, and then we'll get to our prize here, Wade, and get off into the weekend sunset to the Super Bowl. So Allison Clay said, remember last year they were strict, checking photo IDs to match the badge at every main entrance. They used to be very lax about that, but that was way back 10 years ago. Revenue-based ticket, sponsorship. We are hosting a new trade show coming in August. This is from Allison Clay for smaller CPG brands. Robert Cogan, can you sponsor me? Jeff Likovsky, consulting badges. A lot of consultants out there, though. I don't know how that would work. Curtis Knight, he only accepts citizens of, okay, this is a joke. All right. So should we go to our prize? Because we're low on time.
We should. We're almost out of time. We got to think of a question. The easy one. I have an easy one, unless you have one. If you have,
I missed a third of the show, so
okay.
you got it.
Well, that's good. So let's talk about let's stay on the Robert Canada bandwagon here. Powerful Energy. I was drinking a beverage that Robert sent to me earlier in the show. I don't think I've had it. I think I've had it since you've been on. But what is the company? What's the brand? Let's keep it simple. And it should be one of the ones you get in the package from Robert. And if not, Robert, sorry, but you're going to have to throw at least one in there.
That's a huge prize. Can I go and apply myself under my pseudonym?
Kenny's saying go Bills. But so Kenny, do we root for Philly since they aren't the team that beat the Bills, or do you stick with AFC? Hugh got it.
All right.
Hugh got it.
Hugh, not you, but Hugh. Hugh got it. Coffee, dope. Excellent. Coffee. All right. So Hugh, make sure to email cpgvibes100 at gmail.com. And again, make sure to tune into CPG Vibes Newswire. Make sure to give us 5 stars. And then to reiterate, next week, we have an awesome show. It's the Buyer Spotlight Valentine's Day show. Expo Prep with Kenny Hausman from Fresh Time and Robert Johnson with New Seasons. And then, Wade, who are you? Not to alienate half our audience here, but who are you voting? Who are you rooting for?
I'm kind of, Kenny says neither. I'm kind of indifferent, honestly. I think, I could make a argument that to see Kansas City win again would be kind of cool. But Philly's had a great year, but I'm not invested in either one. I really, I don't. The Browns we won't talk about. I was supporting Kenny. I was supporting Kenny, which congratulations, Josh Allen, MVP this year. That's amazing. I was supporting Buffalo and they got knocked out. So I'm kind of, I don't know. I'll probably watch a little bit of the game, a little bit of the pre-show, and
little bit, not the whole thing.
Probably not. Probably not. Yeah.
Okay. I'm also like kind of I'm a spiritual guy. So, either one winning would be awesome, right? If the Chiefs win, three-peat, first time in history, which we've heard 1,000 times, people talking about. But Philadelphia Eagles, they lost to the Chiefs 2 years ago. This would be a nice revenge win. And also, my dad went to Temple University in Philly, and my family was in Philly for a while. I was born here. So I'm going to lean Philadelphia because of my family roots. However, I don't mind either team winning, to be honest. I'm not emotionally invested in either team. So, except the Bills because of Kenny. So Browns are a dumpster fire from Kenny.
True. Truer words have never been spoken.
How are they going to get better? Like, what do they need to do? Get a new team, get more players? Like, what are your thoughts?
Detonate and start over.
New
ownership, honestly, it's they probably couldn't do any worse if they started from scratch, but we could probably do a whole show on that. We won't.
When's the last time they made it? What's the farthest they made and when?
I think they made the playoffs good since they came back. Let's see, what year was it? I've lost track. What year it was. Last made the play. That's not right. What did they? Oh, technically, I guess they made it last year. Technically, they made the wild card.
What do you mean? Oh, the wild card.
But
They lost in the wild card.
Yeah. And then before that, they actually, I guess, technically did 2020. But I mean, what, 3 times in 25 years or so. So they came back in 1998, 1999, and they made the playoff. What is that? Almost 30 years. They made the playoffs 3 times. So yeah, pretty bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys, everyone, for tuning in. It was a great episode. And again, you can find us on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Make sure to give us 5 stars. Check out the CPG Newswire. I know I've said that a few times, but want to make sure that you subscribe to CPG Vibes so you can get updated whenever a Newswire drop happens, which is a few times a week in under 10 minutes. We update you with everything going on in CPG, the important stuff at least. And that's it. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Wade, love you, buddy. Thanks for helping with the show here. And take good care, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
See you next week.